Hello friends, today I am going to talk about the difference between prose and poetry. Actually, literature refers to written creative work, particularly those which have a high and enduring value. It is known for its form in which the message is presented or communicated and its content. Prose and poetry are two common forms of literature, wherein prose is a written work which contains sentences and paragraphs and doesn't have any mythical structure, as against poetry is a genre of literature which is based on a particular form that creates a rhyme. The basic difference between prose and poetry is that we have sentences and paragraphs wherein lines and stanzas can be found in a poetry. Further, there is a regular writing in prose, but there is a unique style of writing a poetry. We can find prose in newspaper articles, blogs, short stories, etc. However, poetry is used to share something special aesthetically to know. Basic difference between prose and poetry. Prose is a straightforward form of literature wherein the author expresses his thoughts and feelings in a lucid way. On the other side, poetry is that form of literature in which the poet uses a unique style and rhythm to express intense experiences. If we talk about definition of prose, the prose is an ordinary writing style in literature which encompasses characters, plot, mood, theme, the point of view, setting, etc., making it a distinctive form of language. It is written using grammatical sentences which forms a paragraph. It may also include dialogues and is sometimes supported by images but doesn't have a mythical structure. Prose can be fictional or non-fictional, heroic, alliterative, village, polyphonic, prose poetry, etc. Biography, autobiography, memoir, essay, short stories, fairy tales, article, novel, blog, and so forth use prose for creative writing. On the other side, definition of poetry. Poetry is something that arouses a complete imaginative feeling by choosing appropriate language and selective words and arranging them in a manner that creates a proper pattern, rhyme, for example, two or more words having identical ending sounds and rhythm. Poetry uses an artistic way to communicate something special, like a musical intonation of stressed and unstressed syllables to express or describe emotions, moments, ideas, experiences, feelings, and thoughts of the poet to the audience. The structural components of poetry include lines, couplet, strophe, stanza, etc. It is the form of verses which constitute stanzas that follows a meter. The number of verses in a stanza depends upon the type of poem. Now we talk about the key differences between prose and poetry. Prose refers to a form of literature having ordinary language and sentence structure. Poetry is that form of literature which is aesthetic by nature, like it has a sound, cadence, rhyme, meter that adds to its meaning. The language of prose is quite direct or straightforward. On the other hand, in poetry, we can use an expressive or creative language which includes comparisons, rhyme, and rhythm that give it a unique cadence and feel. While the prose is pragmatic, realistic, poetry is figurative. Prose contains paragraphs which includes a number of sentences that has an implied message or idea, as against poetry is written in verses which are covered in stanzas. These verses leave a lot of unsaid things, and its interpretation depends upon the imagination of the reader. The prose is utilitarian, which conveys a hidden moral lesson or idea. Conversely, poetry aims to delight or amuse the reader. The most important thing in prose is the message or information. In contrast, the poet shares his or her experience or feelings with the reader, which plays a crucial role in poetry. In prose, there are no line breaks, whereas when it comes to poetry, there are a number of line breaks, which is just to follow the beat or to stress on an idea. When it comes to paraphrasing or summarizing, both prose and poetry can be paraphrased, but the paraphrase of the poem is not the poem because the essence of the poem lies in the style of writing, like the way in which the poet has expressed his or her experience in verses and stanzas. So, this writing pattern and cadence is the beauty of poetry, which cannot be summarized. Now we talk about how to remember the difference. The best trick to remember the difference between these two is to understand their writing style. For example, while prose is written ordinarily, poetry has aesthetic features and so it has a distinctive writing pattern. Further, the prose is that form of language which expansively conveys a message or meaning by way of a narrative structure. On the contrary, poetry is such a form of literature with a unique writing format. For example, it has a pattern, rhyme, and rhythm. In addition to this, prose appears like big blocks of words, whereas the size of poetry may vary as per the line length and poet's intention. Now I am going to talk about uh, one famous poem of Robert Frost, that is stopping by woods on a snowy evening. You will find out the same meaning in prose form as well as in poetic form. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Now, same meaning in prose written by Robert Frost. The woods look lovely against the setting darkness, and as I gaze into the mysterious depths of the forest, I feel like lingering here longer. However, I have pending appointments to keep and much distance to cover before I settle in for the night, or else I will be late for all of them. Now you will find out same meaning between these two forms, but you will find out the difference between size of lines and strength of words and how complicated a poetry can be. And poetry basic difference is that poetry is the best words in the best order, and you will find out few words in poetry, and you will have many meanings, and you can say you will have something bigger imagination about a smaller thing through the poetry.